Every
Good morning, happy Sunday, and welcome to the Tuga, the Everything Portuguese Soccer Podcast by the fans for the fans. I'm Kevin, that's Christian, that's Mitch, and we're coming to you from 3 different locations. This is going to be a lot of fun. Christian, loving the background, man. What's the jersey behind you?
That's a pot jersey. That's when we won the league. I wanted to get a pot jersey for the Gonçalves.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And then this is the certificate. Was when they made the new pavilion.
Yeah.
So that's why I put it in there.
What a time to be alive. Love it. Mitch, how's it going?
Good, guys. Good. Excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, I think, Mitch, last week you were the only one that said Braga was going to beat Sporting, and you were right.
Because I'm the only one with Juiz, man.
You got lucky, man. Get out of here.
It was disappointing loss for Sporting. They blew a 1-0 lead. They lost 2-1. Are there hopes of a repeat over? I mean, if Porto wins today, they'll be 6 points back. Is this season over for Sporting?
Well, man, it pretty much becomes a must-win game at the Dragao for Sporting. We're going to be playing them in a few weeks. And it's a must-win game. If we win that game, we're 3 points back. It's all up in the air. If we lose that game, I think you might as well hand in the title, in my opinion.
It's gonna get tough, man. Sporting lost, so we're about halfway through the year. Sporting's lost more games this year than they did last year. So there's it's not a good situation for Sporting to be in. And like Christian says, against Port. If they lose that game, if they drop points in that game, I think it does become a must-win. But I think every game from here on out becomes a must-win. It's not just the game against Port. Ruben Amorim said in his press conference yesterday that he felt that the game against Bolonês was more of a must-win than the game against Port, because it really becomes a zero-sum game at this point in time. They cannot lose points, especially if Port continue on the form that they have been. So, I think, at the beginning of this season, we talked a lot about a little bit of a skinny squad that Sporting was going into this campeonato with, and I think it's starting to creep up on them. And I think already in the game against Santa Clara, we saw a lackluster Sporting. Just fitness levels weren't there, the intensity levels weren't there. And yesterday it wasn't so much the intensity, but just silly mistakes. I think Christian will probably agree with me. Just really, really silly mistakes that cost Sporting the game. And is that mental fatigue? Is that what that is? I don't know, but they got to figure it out.
So Ruben Amorim said something in the press conference that I totally agreed with, and he has this rep of just calling it how it is. He usually doesn't, sugarcoat things. He just says it as it is. And one thing he said that I totally agree with is, I believe that we're playing better than last year. Although we lost twice, and last year we lost once after already clinching the league. So we pretty much won the league without a single loss. But I totally agree with him. We're playing better than last year. It's just the small, minute details that they're missing. Like if anybody that watched that game would know that, we dominated them. And if there was one team that, should have won, would have been us. We had chances galore. But I think our main issue right now, and it's not huge, is our striker position. We have zero depth. We have Paulinho there, and he has sort of a different role. We use him more almost like a Liverpool, how they use Firmino. He's not really a goal scorer. He's more there to hold the ball and distribute the Pot or distribute to Sarabia. That's why if you look at most of our goals, it goes through there. But when it comes to those clutch goals, those last-second goals, that when we need a goal, he always misses. He's not clutch enough. He's burned so many chances. Even going back against Santa Clara, he had an opportunity right in front of the net, misses it. So it's just little minute details. I think Sporting needs to go to market. They're after Marcus Edwards, but in my personal opinion, we don't really need a winger as much as we need another striker, because I don't think TT is ready yet. Tiago Tomás, he's really young. He hasn't been really scoring. He hasn't grasped that position yet. So I feel like we just need to fill in a few holes. But what Sporting is struggling with, we're still, people got to remember that we're still rebuilding, so to speak. We overachieved last year. Nobody would have thought, even the most diehard Sporting fan would have thought we would have won the league last year. So we're still in that growing phase, and we're having growing pains. Like, if you watch that game, Inacio, Gonçalo Inacio, made 3 horrendous mistakes. Horrendous. And the last one, we paid for it, man. It was a really bad giveaway late in the game. And, good on Braga, they finished it. But it's just those little small details that Sporting are missing. But these are growing pains, man. They're gonna grow from this. They're gonna learn from this, and hopefully get better.
Would you say that was Gonçalo Inacio's worst game that you've seen him play?
Yes. You know what? It's ironic because he is young. He's very young. Everybody knows that. But he never played like he is young. He never really makes mistakes. He was super, super, super solid and reliable. But you know what? Yesterday, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because he got a red last year against Braga that almost cost us the league, that he was a little bit more nervous. I don't know if that was weighing on his mind, but that was literally his worst game. He was giving away passes. Crazy. But it wasn't defensive mistakes where he misses a guy or a guy comes in behind. It was just when he has the ball on his feet, that last pass, he would give it away. He gave it away 3 times.
Yeah.
So he did look his age yesterday. But you know what? I think he's going to learn from this, and hopefully he grows from it.
When you talk about their lack of depth in the striker role, man, I don't know why Sporting, out of all the big 3 right now, everybody should be looking at them, but Sporting, I think, is the one that needs a striker the most. I don't know why Sporting is not looking at a guy like Fran Navarro from Gil Vicente.
Yeah.
Like, he's a pure number 9. He scored 11 goals. He's number 2 in the scoring right now. Spanish striker, like, could probably pick him up for a decent price. And I mean, I don't know why Sporting's not looking at a guy. I think all the big 3 should be looking at him because he is a very good player. But I don't know why Sporting isn't looking at a guy like Fran to come in now at midway point to try and add some depth to that role.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. But with Sporting and their striker role, they need a unique kind of striker. So if you guys pretty much seen how Sporting play, they play more off the wings. Like I mentioned earlier, Paulinho is more of a Firmino kind of striker. So they strive with a striker that can hold the ball and play for the team, so to speak. So they would need a specific kind of striker, almost like Harry Kane. Obviously, he's class above, but that kind of style of player. Maybe that's why he's not really under our radar.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I would love that player on our team. I don't think we need another player like Paulinho. I think we'll need a guy that to come in off the bench and score a big goal instead of
like
Coates running up all the time.
Yeah, Coates is almost more of a substitute for Paulinho than Tomás Tavares is.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? Fair play to him. He did good in that role last year, but that's only going to take you so far. Yeah. I remember Mitch earlier on in the year. He mentioned that we had a crazy amount of points in the last 10 minutes of the game last year. And when you're doing that, you're playing with fire because you're eventually that estrelinha, like they say in Portugal, is going to wear out. You're not going to get that last second heroic goal every single time. So, but you know what? The thing with Sporting's in this unique situation because they're trying to do strategic buys. We don't have money to be buying, like filling up all their little spots. So what Ruben Amorim wants to do, he wants to have 2 players for each position so he can grow the youth. So it works for some things, but games like these last few games, you get burned for it sometimes.
Did you listen to Varanda's interview by any chance?
Yes, I did.
I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, the main thing that stood out, he said a lot of things. The main thing that stood out was when he was his whole rivalry with Pinto Costa. He was pretty much saying that Portugal is behind. It's like almost like a third world country when it comes to disciplining teams. So yeah, that was his main thing that I took out of it. He brought up like back in 2002, 2003 when Pinta Costa was bribing referees, giving them I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on air, but prostitutes and stuff like that. So yeah, he brought that up. And
Putas, man, putas.
Putas. Yeah, we'll go putas. He's buying them putas and giving them money, and the whole. Everybody knows the scandal. So yeah, that was the main thing I took out of that. So.
Quick updates here, looking at the scores around Liga Portugal. Marítimo and BSAD tied 1-1 in 74th minute. Estoril blew a 1-0 lead. They're down 2-1 to Vitória de Guimarães. So Vitória de Guimarães will be tied for 5th in the standings here if this result holds firm. Mitch, Benfica 2-0 win this week. How did that look?
Not convincing.
They're 3 points back of Sporting now.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately didn't get to watch the full game. I just got to see some of the extended highlights, but I was able to talk to some people that watched the game and hear some commentary on it, and just another unconvincing kind of performance. I think there was an article in Awala this morning just talking about how Rafa is kind of falling out of favor with the new coach Nelson Veríssimo, and how he's been subpar in terms of form, since Nelson's come on. But I don't think it's I think they're kind of singling out one of our best players, trying to kind of put the blame on him. I don't think this is a problem with Rafa. I think it's a team that's in transition, man, and we're still transitioning to the new coach's ideas and trying to find our identity as a team. You go from being coached by such a big personality like a Jorge Jesus, who really is tries to instill a strong mentality with the team and has a very specific style and approach. To a guy like Nelson Veríssimo, who I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about. He coached the B team, but we're still all getting to know Nelson and what his ideas are. So I think it's a team very much in transition right now. But we got to get our shit together, man, because we have a big game against Ajax coming up, and if we don't smarten up, we're gonna get smacked around that field like a bunch of little kids. Like it's gonna be bad. So we have to get our shit together.
I don't. I think if you're thinking that Benfica stands a chance against Ajax, I think you're the one that's dreaming right now. I think they're going to get smacked around regardless of what happens. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Sporting fan. I just think Ajax is a really solid team, and Benfica has just been, they've been shit all year.
You know what though? That's the beauty of soccer. You know what? Like
Benfica sucks. I agree. That is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, that too. But you know what? Like the term in football, any given Sunday, right? And anything can happen. They could go in there, they can squeak a result. Like look at them against Barcelona, and I think Mitch can even agree to this next point I'm about to bring up. Benfica has to be one of the most unpredictable teams I've ever seen, and that's I'm not saying that lightly. They go out and they beat Braga 6-1, and then they go and lose 3-1 to Sporting the next game, and then they go and get a good result, and then they play bad the next game. They're just a very inconsistent team. So anything can happen, man. Like, to be honest, when I seen them play against Barcelona, I know this was a little bit back. This is still under the JJ reign, but I was like, man, Benfica look great. They look dangerous. So, I mean, anything can happen, man. And you know what? Momentum can. Teams go through phases. Sometimes, like Sporting's going through a bad phase. Earlier on in the year, they were top. And Porto's top right now, and they might slowly trickle down. So you don't know. And not to mention, we live in a COVID era. So. What if Ajax, gets the bug and most of their players are out? Like, there's always a chance.
And that's a really good point. And speaking of that, Steven Eustáquio has tested positive for COVID-19, so he will miss Canada's next 3 World Cup qualifying games.
Huge.
Canada will also be without Alphonso Davies as well. So Canada definitely feeling the hurt right now. Obviously, they got off to a great start in their World Cup qualifying, so hopefully they'll be able to capitalize on that. But suddenly, we all went from, it'll be the first time qualifying since 1986 to, well, fingers crossed that they qualify. I still think they will. I still think they will. But, I mean, these 3 games are going to be very, interesting to tell. They've got the U.S. In Hamilton, and then they'll be going to El Salvador and Honduras, so that will be very difficult for them. Speaking of Steven Eustáquio, he has joined FC Porto on a loan with an option for a purchase. I mean, a pretty good move for Eustáquio, and I think that's a good pickup by Porto.
Yeah, we talked about him a little bit last week. He's a wicked player, and it's just going to add to their pooling talent already. Like we mentioned last time, we don't know if he'll crack the lineup, but having Steven Eustáquio on your team is always a bonus. Honestly, I was talking about this guy last year because he was also linked with Sporting, and I would love to have him, man. And like again, watching him live, you could just tell he's a special player, and he's a big player for Canada. Him being out of our lineup with Alphonso Davies makes it that much harder. It goes back to my point where I said about Ajax Benfica. Something like this happens, anything could happen. But, good for him. He deserves it. Been playing really well, and I wish him nothing but the best.
I'm glad it's a loan deal, though.
Yeah.
I would hate for him to go there permanently and not find his footing and end up on the bench and waste 1 or 2 seasons before he finds his way out of that team again.
But that seems to be the big problem with a lot of some of these young players, right? They see that big team opportunity, that chance to go and it's a dream come true to join one of the big 3 in Portugal or big teams in other countries. But then they get there and they're riding the pine, and that's not really going to help them in their development, and that's not going to be good for them whatsoever. You look at what's his face, former Liverpool guy, and then he went to Spain. It was a Philip Coutinho, where he was, he coming back to the Premier League was the best thing that could have happened to him, and sometimes you just got to weigh your options and figure. I mean, Ricardo Quaresma is another perfect example, but anyways, the list goes on and on.
Speaking of that, look, check out the back, boys. Vintage Quaresma.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wanted to add something if I could.
Go for it. Absolutely.
There was
the
some
floor is yours.
There was some huge news that broke out a couple days ago that Rafael Leão is going to have to pay Sporting $16.5 million. So I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on that and what you guys think about that.
Well, I know you're happy about that. You've been complaining about it for the last 2 or 3 years since
that's Cuban Amorim money, man. We could pay him now. I'll take it.
No, I mean if it's legit, obviously this goes to the way that Rafael Leão left Sporting after the whole attack at the Academia. There was a lot of players who broke their contracts with Sporting, and agents were trying to find clauses in the contracts to allow the players to kind of leave without a full transfer fee to Sporting. And all jokes aside, because I've busted balls with a lot of my Sporting Stiff friends, about all that and all of the talent that left that team. But in all reality, it's good that Sporting is getting compensated, because if it wasn't legit, which they found that it wasn't, the way that he left, then Sporting should be fairly compensated. I agree with that 100%. So obviously it's a big hit, a big financial hit for him, but it is what it is.
Yeah, like I know people have mixed emotions about this, but you got to remember, Sporting, they are not a Real Madrid or a Man United or these teams that have endless pools of money. Sporting is a team that relies on growing players, breeding them, growing them up, teaching them skills, or bringing in investments and then reselling. So what happened during that attack is pretty much all our investments, all our young prodigies, are the big players, they left for nothing. And Sporting almost, as you guys know the story, I don't have to tell you the whole shebang, but pretty much went bankrupt. Like we're still suffering from it. And people have mixed emotions, but I find it a little bit greedy that these players, some more than not, so some more than others, I should say, left for nothing, and the team didn't get compensated for growing them, feeding them in their academy, giving them all the best coaches, all these best things, and just be out of greed. A lot of them are the agents that fill these players' heads in, saying, "Oh, well, you could technically leave because your contract is void. Go sign for AC Milan and make double the money." And you know what? It burned Rafael Leão bad because and he was sort of greedy because he wasn't even there during the attacks. I might be butchering this a little bit, but pretty much from what I'm hearing, he pretty much told Sporting that he was going to play, and then behind the scenes, he went and pulled a fast one. And
so here's a question from Rich: does he deserve a call up versus Turkey?
100%.
Well, he's got to pay 16.5 million, man. Of course, he deserves. He's got to work now.
Got to pay to play, huh? No, the guy's Richie's right. The guy's been in spectacular form. I've talked about him lots on the podcast. He's in great form. The AC Milan coach the other day compared him to Thierry Henry. Like he is in great form. He's playing alongside Zlatan. I mean, the kid is great. And you got to remember too, I think a lot of people are being harsh on Leão. You got to remember, he was 18 years old when he left.
Yeah.
18, 19 when he left Sporting. You got to remember how much influence a player at that age has or how much they're influenced by their agents and their managers, to make certain moves, and nobody will remember this better than Christian. Remember when Bruma left Sporting? And the way that he left Sporting, he got shit on by everybody. You got to remember it's a very similar situation. Bruma was also 18, and his agent, I think, was hungry for cash. And you got to remember, like, these kids, a lot of them, grew up very poor. When you start talking about this kind of money with these kids, they can't. The concept of managing that kind of money and they have to be very careful who they surround themselves with. And you gotta imagine a kid like Leão at the time, who was given an opportunity to leave Sporting and go sign a big contract with a big club. The way that it all happened, you gotta think about how much motivation and how much influence, the manager and the agent had on the player's decision. So I don't want to, shit all over Leão for that. All that aside, he's a wicked player that's going to bring a ton of excitement to the Seleção, I think. And I think we need a player like that right now in the Seleção. He is so fast, and he is so deceivingly fast because the guy looks so slow. Like, he's got this swagger about him when he plays. Like, he's just so nonchalant, and you almost think he's lazy. But then all of a sudden, he's got these long legs, and it honestly doesn't look like he's going fast. But you can see the guy beside him is sprinting like crazy, and he can't catch up with him. But he's got these long legs, these long strides, and he's always playing with a smile on his face, man. Like, he's a great little player, man. I love Leão. All that other bullshit aside, I'm excited to see him, and I think he should get a call up to the Seleção, and I think he should get some playing time because I think we need him right now in the Seleção.
Christian, this one's for you, buddy.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of people don't know this. And this is. Good thing I'm wearing this jersey as proof. But when Cristiano Ronaldo and Quaresma first came up, Quaresma was, seen as the prodigy over Ron. Not a lot of people were talking about Ron. Although he was a couple years younger, he was the main guy. He was the guy that, was the next superstar. And, we all know how his career ended. But, yeah, it was definitely a
buddy, I will never forget. I was watching Ricardo Quaresma's first game for Barcelona. It was during a tournament in the States against AC Milan. And at the time, everybody was talking about Ronaldinho because he had just joined Barcelona at the same time from PSG. And everybody was talking about Ronaldinho. And all of a sudden, this kid jumps onto the field, Ricardo Quaresma, and he takes a ball down on his chest, puts it around Cafu like he was a little kid in a park. And bangs it home, and everybody's like, who the hell is this kid? He was doing rabonas all over the field. Ronaldinho, who? It was unbelievable, man. And to think of a kid like that at that time outshining Ronaldinho, who we all know, how amazing Ronaldinho is, arguably one of the greatest players ever for just his pure skill. To think that at that time already Quaresma was outshining a guy like Ronaldinho on that day anyway, it just shows you the potential that he had.
And a lot of people think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Christian.
I was just going to add. A lot of people have this misconception that when Quaresma went to Barcelona, that he wasn't doing good or he didn't pan out. It wasn't good enough. That's not what happened, man. If that those who follow him closely knew that he actually played really well, was crazy on the field, but what killed him is, his personality. He would fight with people in the locker room. There was this major incident with him and Carlos Puyol where they're scrapping in the change room. So that's what sort of hindered his career was, his inability to be coached, so to speak. And
he
his
rebounded.
personality.
He rebounded towards the end, right? Like he rebounded, like what would you say, about 2010, 20? No, probably a little bit later than that. Probably about 2014-ish.
He rebounded when he went back to Port. When he went back to Port is when he rebounded. That's when he really found his form again. And it just comes down to, like Christian said, he couldn't be coached. So when he went back to Port, I can't remember if it was who the coach was when he went back. But at the time, I think it was, I don't know if it was Josué Freire. I think it was Josué Freire that just knew that to get the best out of Quaresma, you got to just let him do his thing, man. And that's what happened. And you can't try and coach him. He's got to be the center of attention on the team. He's got to be the focal point, and he's got to be given a role that he can just kind of do what he wants, and you can't really tell him what to do, and he'll shine. And I think Mourinho found out the hard way when he forced Inter to splash all that cash on Quaresma, because I think Mourinho said, under me, I can make this kid a superstar. And we all kind of know what happened there. He ended up getting relegated down to the reserves and booed off the field multiple times. And it's just, he can't be coached, man. He can't be coached. And I think he gave an interview shortly after we won the Euro, and he kind of talked about how he sabotaged his own career in a lot of ways because of his attitude. And I think he just kind of figured, he was better than everybody, and he didn't need to listen to anybody because, of what he could do with the ball at his feet. But I think we all know it. In football, it doesn't come down to just pure raw talent. It comes down to coachability and work rate, and all those things factor into it.
So he went back in 2013 to 15 to FC Porto. Paulo Fonseca was the manager in that first spell. Luis Castro came in for about 16 games, and then the Spaniard coach there, I don't know how to say his last name.
Julian Lopetegui.
Lopetegui, thank you. Yeah, and you're right. Rich just said here, and it's a really good point. He showed up for Porto in Euro 2016. The rest of his career was questionable. You're right. You're not wrong. There's no denying he had a lot of talent. I do think that he's one of those guys where, like, look at Cristiano Ronaldo. Where would Cristiano Ronaldo be without Sir Alex Ferguson? Right? Sir Alex is the one that grounded him. Sir Alex is the one that took that childish, constantly flopping around. I mean, he still flops around, but a lot of that stuff, he's the one that kind of kicked it out of him and kind of showed him that if you're going to be a star, if you're going to make it big in this sport, this is what you got to do. He became that father figure to him and a mentor, and really helped him along the way. And Ricardo Quaresma never had that.
Yeah, and with Ronaldo, he's the kind of person that could be molded by Sir Alex Ferguson. I don't think Quaresma could have been molded by Sir Alex Ferguson. One thing about Ronaldo is that he had that work ethic instilled into his brain. You almost got to be that good, whether you're vocal about it or not. You got to be super narcissistic in a way. Some people don't say it out loud. Maybe on the outside, they'll be a little more humble, but in your head, you got to be like, I'm the greatest. I want to be the best. Nobody's better than me. And I think Ronaldo had that at a young age. If you listen to his coaches or what he was doing when he was younger, he would tell his teammates, he would tell his teacher when he was a little kid that I'm going to be the best player in the world. So he also had that kind of mentality where a guy like Sir Alex Ferguson can come in, mentor him, teach him, guide him, tell him his flaws, and he'll work at it. Whereas Quaresma did not have that. He had more of a mentality: who are you to tell me what to do? Well, so on and so forth. So that's my opinion on it.
quick update. Vitória de Guimarães takes the 3-1 win over Estoril. Again, 3 unanswered goals there. And Marítimo and Bolnis tied at 1 in the 90th minute. So I assume that will likely stay the case.
Add on to that, speaking of Quaresma, I think it was last game or a couple games ago, they had a bad result. I don't know if you remember who it was against, Mitch. It's slipping my memory now, but the fans were really, really, really upset.
And he got into it with them.
Yeah. And him being from the rougher parts of Lisbon, that's where he strives. So he went in to those crowds, those rowdy crowds, and he took the blame for what happened. And you know what? That's a huge result for Guimarães. It's looking like they're growing from it. And
they're tied for 5th right now. They're tied for 5th right now, so that looks pretty good. Hey, we got an interesting question here from João Martins. What's your opinion on ownership from billionaires in modern football? Do you think it's better, or do you think it should be like most clubs in Portugal and Spain with fans voting on who runs the club? Any one of you want to chime in on that one?
First of all, I want to say shout out to João Martins. Me and him go at it in the group chat all the time. He's a diehard Portista, but it's good to see him on here.
My condolences.
One day, hopefully, we can get him on the pod. We'll see.
Yeah.
But my opinion on that, it has its pros and cons. Definitely, pros. Look at like Man City. They're elite. Cons or what happened with the Super Club or the Super League, I should say. Things like that can happen. There's a risk of that. When you have these investment people going there, they might be able to ruin the club. But I don't know what your opinion is on this, Mitch, but it has its pros and cons, but I would not mind if a billionaire guy bought Sporting. That's my opinion on it, but
I think it has to be done very carefully. It's a great question. And, I tend to like the way that Benfica is set up where you've got Benfica SAD and then you've got Sport Lisboa e Benfica, where the fans basically own, the lion's share of Benfica SAD. And then you've got, the other part that can be owned by, they're basically publicly traded. So you've got private investors who can come in and actually, buy portions of the team, so the team can benefit from outside investment, and that's kind of where they can get outside funding. This is where this whole thing with John Textor, with Benfica, him wanting to come in and buy up, 16 or 17% of shares that were split between O Rei dos Frangos and Luís Filipe Vieira and some other individuals. And I think in that sense, where it's kind of hybrid, where you can benefit from the investment, but you're not under their full control and ownership. I think those are the situations where it can be most beneficial, because at the end of the day, the teams need sometimes outside investment to do different things. As these clubs, if you actually look into, the financials of a lot of these clubs, unless they've made a big sale, and I'm speaking more specifically to the Portuguese League, unless either Sporting or Porto or Benfica has sold a big name player, they don't usually turn a lot of profit just from their everyday business operations, unless they're selling big name players. Like, for example, when Benfica sold João Felix to Athletic Madrid for 100 and some million, we actually showed significant profits on the financials. So you can't really leave it for the team to be pumping in, massive profits so that the club can reinvest. So sometimes you need an outside guy to come in. But the worry, of course, is always that the fans kind of lose control, or the sausage lose control. So I think that hybrid approach where, the fans will always own, the lion's share, but then you can bring in outside investment so that the team can benefit from that investment. I think that's the best way to kind of go about it. So I'll say I was very, very supportive of Benfica listening to John Textor. He's an investor from the States who's been going around. He just bought a team in Brazil. He's invested in a team in Brazil. I think he bought a team in, I want to say it was Belgium that he just invested in. So he's trying to make some investments strategically into football, and he was very interested in coming into Benfica. So I think we need to listen to guys like that, and I think it opens the door, but I think it has to be done carefully and strategically, because I don't think we want to become, these. If Portugal all of a sudden had a big Saudi investor, for example, buy up a Sporting or a Porto, right now I don't think there's the regulatory kind of structure in Portuguese football to prevent one team from just spending absurd amount of money to just completely make it so that it's no longer competitive and buying up players.
Well, there's the fair play. There's the FIFA fair play stuff, or which is also pretty dicey too. But
it's very dicey, man. And already as it is, there's a gulf in class between a Benfica and the Volnez.
Yeah. And okay, so what if a Saudi guy comes in and buys Gil Vicente?
Sure, yeah, they can do that, but unless you're going to have Saudi guys buying up every single team in the league, it still makes it unfair. You're still going to have the one guy who hasn't had that outside investment, and that's sitting there with a squad that's worth the salary of one player from Benfica, and that's the risk you run. So it's got to be done, I think, very strategically.
At the end of the day, I think that if someone wants to come in and buy a team, they have the money for it. I mean, look, the investment would be great. I mean, how many times have we been frustrated seeing, we're, with Sporting, oh, you got a good player, now we got to sell him because we need the money. You develop these guys, and it's just like hopes of ever winning, a Champions League, or just it's so pie in the sky when you're going up against these giants like Bayern Munich, and Manchester United and Real Madrid, Barcelona, like the list goes on and on and on. The problem with the billionaires coming in and the people wanting to come in and buy these teams is you lose that connection to what that team is all about, right? It's not just a business, and that's the beauty of sport. It's not just a business. And sometimes it works great. I mean, take a look at Leicester City, right? I mean, they ended up winning a championship. They turned out to be a wonderful situation. Then you take a look at Manchester United, and how many times have they had that fight between the fans and the Glazers, So you see that situation happening. I do think that ultimately, if there, like you said, Mitch, if there's a hybrid, if there's a way that you can bring in an outside investor, but you still have some input and some the fans still feel like they're a part of it, that's fine. But having fans have complete control and all that's not always the best thing either, because fans are too emotional. They don't think outside the box. They don't think what may be best for the club sometimes. They're just thinking with their heart, and that's not always the best thing in business. So there needs to be a little bit of a balance. There definitely needs a little bit more money there in Portugal, I think, especially with these teams, to just try and see some success. So it'll be
great question, Joel. I love it.
Great question. Great question.
Where were you guys 20 years ago today?
20 years ago. 20 years ago.
20 years ago today. January 23rd, 2002. Where were you guys? I was in college, but where were you guys?
I was in junior high, man.
What was I, 10? To be honest, I don't remember. I was 10 years old. That was just before the iconic World Cup of 2002. One of the best Brazilian teams I've ever seen that year. That's what, after Euro 2000, Euro 2002, or World Cup 2002, that's when I truly fell in love with football, and I got that itch.
Mm-hmm.
But January
23rd, 20 years ago today, this guy right here, Jose Mourinho, took over as head coach of Porto, beginning his his 2 decades of success in soccer. Obviously, he had a brief stint in with what was it, Stubble? No, União Leiria.
Oh, he coached União Leiria. He coached Benfica.
And Benfica for a little bit. I mean, 31 games total that he coached both those teams. But then he went to Porto, and that's when he started seeing his success. So my question to you, Jose Mourinho, greatest of all time?
So,
and I'm not going to say greatest of all time in terms of all soccer, because I think we can all agree that that's not the case. But Portuguese managers, is he the greatest of all time?
I'll let you go, Mitch. I gotta think. I gotta process.
That's a great question, Kev. I mean, I think
We have one person here. Jonathan says overrated coach.
I don't think he's overrated. I think you can't call a guy with that kind of resume and what he did overrated. Just what he did with Porto alone, to me, makes him unarguably one of the greatest Portuguese coaches of all time. To take a Porto team at that time, Porto did not have superstars, man. When they won the Champions League, I mean, of course,
they turned
into superstars, right? But at the time, it's not like Porto had a budget to go and buy all these players. So just what Mourinho did with that Porto squad, and not only it's not only the Champions League, he won the UEFA Cup with them, and then the next year he won the Champions League with them. And that team was phenomenal. It was the right group of players, but I think he developed a style of football that at the time was really new. A lot of people didn't understand his tactics. It was really hard to play against him, and I don't think you can say that he was underrated, man. He did amazing things. He trained under the best. I mean, he trained under Bobby Robson at Barcelona. I mean, this guy trained under the best, and I think he's got a brilliant mind when it comes to football and tactics. And I don't think he's underrated at all, man. I don't think you can even say underrated and Jose Mourinho in the same breath, just solely for what he did at Porto. Going forward, then you got to look at what he did with Chelsea, what he did with Inter. I mean, the man, I think he's done so many great things, and I think football has evolved. The game has evolved so much that I think his tactics today have not evolved at the same pace as the game has, and I think that's why Mourinho has fallen back a little bit in some of his previous roles. But it takes nothing away from him. I think the game has just evolved so much that his tactics and his just haven't evolved at the same pace. But I think does he have the capacity to catch up and get back into that stride? I think 100% he does. I think he's doing a good job at Roma. And I hope to see him do well there. It was sad that it didn't work out at Man United, because I felt like that was just the perfect, fairy tale kind of story for him to replace kind of the legendary, Sir Alex role there and become that legendary figure at Man United, such an iconic club. It was sad to see that not work out. But I think going back to billionaire owners, I think that ownership had a lot to do with his lack of success there. But greatest of all time in Portugal, I would have to agree with that. Greatest of all time in coaches in general, I think he's in the conversation. I think he's probably within the top 5. But in terms of Portuguese coaches, I can't think of anybody better than Jose Mourinho.
He's been good so far this morning. Roma with a 4-0 lead 43 minutes into their game against Empoli. So looking pretty good today.
There's one coach that's Portuguese that I'd put him above. I don't know if you guys agree. His name's Fernando Santos. I think Fernando. I'm just kidding. No. In terms of being the GOAT, he's easily the GOAT. Mitch touched up on it earlier. His mentor, Bobby Robson. He was actually his interpreter. So what better way to learn tactics and stuff than literally repeating everything Robson was saying. But like he said, he won with Porto. He won the UEFA. And then the next year won the Champions League. Only one other team has ever done that, and it was Liverpool, where they won the Europa League, and the next year they won the Champions League. And then another thing that was huge for him, he beat out one of the greatest teams of all time. I don't think anybody can argue it, was Barcelona. They were unstoppable. That was when tiki-taka was the meta, so to speak. Nobody can stop him. And with Inter, he won against them, and he won the Champions League with Inter. That was another huge achievement. Won the treble in Italy,
and not a glamorous team by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Oh, okay, boys. But Here's a good comment here from Joshua Botelho. Just to be devil's advocate, why don't we grant Fernando Santos the same grace? To simply be outdated because the game has changed, but not take that as a reflection of him as a manager. Christian, the floor is yours.
I can't. I don't know.
Let's zoom into your face just so we can see. You can see the pain in his face right now.
Fernando Santos, what kind of resume does Fernando Santos have now?
2 big championships for the Portuguese national team.
Okay, he won the Euro 2016. Okay, and I love him for that. Okay,
and the Nations League.
And the Nations League. But let's be honest here. Okay, it's been time. We digested it. It's ours. We want it. Can you guys honestly say? And I know that's not about it. I could see Kevin about to attack me. Okay, I understand it's about winning. I get it. It's the main goal. You go in there to win. But we didn't play lavish football, and I know that's all it's about.
Who cares?
We got a little bit lucky. Okay, let's call it how it is.
Neither did Inter when Mourinho won the Champions League.
Yes. Who we got? Let's call a spade, like Mitch likes to say. You know, we got third place that tournament without a single win. I know that's not what it's about, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what it's about, but we didn't play glamorous football. I'll give them this. In the Nations League, we played beautiful soccer. We did do good. But other than that, I'm not convinced anymore. Like, we have this pool of talent without going on a huge tangent. I'll wrap it up quick, but we're not grasping our players. We're not using the most of our players. He was a good coach for what we had in 2016. Grinded out defensive play. I don't think he's a good coach to play free-flowing, attacking, beautiful soccer. That's just my opinion on it. Without going on a huge rant.
I mean, we've been notoriously harsh on Fernando Santos on this podcast, and I think the reason for that is because we see a man whose tactics just no longer serve the pool of talent that our seleção has. But to Joshua's point, you can't deny the man's greatness in his own way and what he's achieved with all 3 clubs in Portugal and with our seleção. There's no doubt that when you're talking about the greatest of all time, Christian made a joke of it, but for what he's achieved, he's got to be in the conversation of the greatest of all time for Portuguese coaches. He has to. No matter what we think of him today, for what he was able to achieve, he may not be the right coach for Portugal today. That's not to say I don't know, Christian, and none of us know, with a different coach, would we have won the Euro? Mm-hmm. Had a coach come in there and decided to play all-out attacking freestyle football, would we have won the Euro in 2016 with the team that we had? I don't know that we would have.
1,000%.
Yeah,
so
1,000%.
I think he was the right coach for Portugal at that time with the group of players that we had, and I think you take nothing away from the man, because that when you look at how Portugal won the Euro, we tactically won it. I mean, I've rewatched the Portugal-France game I don't know how many times, and I am just in awe every time I watch that game at the tactics that he implemented at every single phase of the game. When Ronaldo left, the changes he made throughout the game, the way he switched things, the way he played certain players in certain positions. And then in the Nations League final was the same thing. I rewatched that game against Holland I don't know how many times, and we talk so much shit about William Carvalho and whatnot, but in that game against Holland, the way that he utilized William Carvalho in his role to high press Holland so that they could never break out pass, it was tactical brilliance. It was genius. So I mean, to Joshua's point, Fernando Santos deserves his own spotlight, and just because he's not, we don't feel he's the right coach for Portugal today with the crop of players that we have. It takes nothing away from what the man has done in his past, and I think he absolutely is one of the greatest of all time, just for what he's been able to achieve.
And that's exactly it. Fernando Santos walked away 2 years ago, none of us would be talking like this about him.
No.
We'd all be like, he's the greatest of all time. He's unbelievable. Da 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 da. He's overstayed his welcome, and that's kind of soured people on him. But don't let that tarnish his past and his reputation and what he's accomplished. Because you're right, Fran Sanch has been is definitely
there's a saying: you either die soon enough to be the hero, or you live long enough to be the villain. And
No,
you got to
true.
know
wise
when,
words.
you got to know when to step down. And I think he missed that opportunity, and now he's unfortunately kind of become that villain.
There's
Yeah,
that other
and
saying: you know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
gotta know when to fold
Yeah,
them.
you can start saying it's karaoke night with Christian. Here we go.
No, but yeah, honestly, you hit the nail right on the head, and that's what I mentioned earlier. Whereas he was the right coach for the team we had in 2016 to instill that belief that Garra to be the underdogs. I just take nothing away from him. He's a legend. He is one of the greatest Portuguese coaches of all time for what he did. Take zero away from him, and he'll always, always, always be part of our history, and rightfully so. But where we are now, I'm going to reiterate, with the pool of talent, when it comes time for us not to be the underdogs anymore, to go and take it to them, I'm sorry, he's not that guy. He's not that guy.
So we're almost up against the clock here, but I'm going to throw one more question. Jose Mourinho, Fernando Santos leaves Portugal. Would you consider Jose Mourinho as a replacement, as a swan song for his career? Or has the game just passed him by so much that it's just not going to work? Personally, as years ago, if you would have asked me 15 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, I would have said, yeah, I'd love to see Jose Mourinho with the national team. You ask me now? No. The game has changed too much. I don't necessarily think he's the right person for the job anymore. But Fernando Santos, he leaves at the end of this World Cup qualifying campaign. Would you consider Jose Mourinho if he was interested?
I 100% would take him. And Mitch, before you say anything, I think if there's ever a coach to sit Ronaldo and make you smile, it's him. He'll think joints, man. He'll be the guy to make those tough decisions. Although, what I feel about that, I don't think it's his time to do that yet, personally. But whatever, he would be that guy to make those tough decisions, and I do personally think he would do really well for us. And you also gotta remember that he's a Portuguese icon. Him going into a team with like Manchester United, they might rub people the wrong way. But on Portugal, like, oh, this is Jose Mourinho. You know what I mean? He'll have that extra respect level, and he may be able to, bring back the Mourinho role, so to speak. I think he would do great. I could be wrong, but I personally would take Jose Mourinho.
Mitch?
Sure. I would not take Jose Mourinho as long as Cristiano Ronaldo was still playing for the Seleção, because I think they have too big of egos, and I think we seen what happened at Real Madrid at the tail end of his time there, and I just the Seleção, the importance of a good, healthy locker room in the Seleção is so important. And I think there's too much risk of clash of heads clash of egos between Mourinho and Ronaldo especially at this stage in Ronaldo's career and Mourinho's, that it's just, it would not, I don't think it would be a good fit until Ronaldo retires.
Okay, so let's say Ronaldo says after let's say Portugal fails to qualify for the World Cup. Fernando Santos is done. I think we can all agree with that. Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe he retires from international play. At that point, I think 2024. Let's just say he retires from international play. So then, if Ronaldo's out of the picture, you're saying you would consider Jose Mourinho if he was interested?
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? I mean, a guy that
I think the game has passed him by. I think he can give you a quick short-term burst, but that's about it. He's the type of guy that, I would consider bringing him in if Portugal had fired Fernando Santos halfway through this World Cup qualifying campaign. maybe bring him in just to kind of shake things up for that interim. Sure, maybe. But as a permanent replacement for Fernando Santos, no. I think you need to start looking to the new generation. You need to start looking for someone who.
The problem with that
sees
is,
the game a little
Kev,
different.
as much as I agree with you there, it's very tough to get one of these new-aged coaches in to coach a seleção at this point in their career.
You're right.
You know, it's very much an older, senior kind of position, because you're not getting that week in, week out action. So it's very difficult to get that young-minded coach. As much as I'd love to see somebody like a Ruben Amorim or even a Sérgio Conceição, at the helm of the seleção, I just the probability and the reality of it is probably not very it's not very realistic at this point in time. So a guy like Jose Mourinho would be kind of that older coach. But I think, again, and I mentioned this earlier, I think even though I do feel the game has kind of outpaced his tactical mind a little bit, I still believe that he has the ability to catch up. And I think he just needs time with a club, and he needs ownership to give him some patience. I was really worried that he was going to get sacked before Christmas with Roma because he had a couple of series of bad results. And I was honestly, for his sake, I was hoping that the ownership gave him some time, because you can't ever doubt a tactical genius mind like that. You just got to sometimes give him a little bit of time to get his bearings. So to that point, man, I think I would welcome him in this lesson, because honestly, who the hell else are you going to get? There's very few guys, André Villas-Boas, Nuno Espírito Santo, maybe somebody like that. But if it ever came down to André Villas-Boas, Nuno Espírito Santo, or Jose Mourinho, who are you going to choose? Jose Mourinho all day. I mean, I don't
or Fernando Santos sticks around till 2024.
Jesus.
Just to add on, if I can, real quick. I know we're against the clock here, but to sort of be on Mourinho's side a little bit, play devil's advocate. Yeah, his time has sort of passed him, but in a way, he never was given a full chance at his team. Like, even with United, he wasn't given a fair shake, in my opinion. He was already coming out and saying that Luke Shaw wasn't good enough. They needed another left back. He was saying that getting second place was Manchester United's biggest achievement, or his biggest achievement at Manchester United. He was talking about Bissaka. He was talking about all these things that we're seeing that are true. He was talking about Pogba, saying that he was a little bit toxic in his own way. He was saying that he cares more about cars than his team, and it's coming out in the news that he's on his way out, that he's toxic. Luke Shaw's bench, like all these things that he was implementing and people were against him for, and sort of went against him and made him the bad guy, and they shot him away, or come to fruition right now. Tottenham, Bergwijn, he brought in Bergwijn, was one of his main pickups. You've seen what he did on the weekend. So to be fair to him, these coaches live in a time where they have such a small window of success, and if they have like 3 or 4 bad results, he's out the window. I feel like a coach, they do need a little bit of time. They need a few years to grow, to add their identity, to add their players to the team. And I know Mourinho shoots himself in the foot sometimes, but at the same time, he wasn't given a fair shake. And I think Roma is a good team for him, because I think that they will give him a fair shake there. And it's looking, they're doing pretty good right now.
I think that had Jose Mourinho taken over Manchester United when Sir Alex left, instead of going to David Moyes and Louis van Gaal and so forth, I think it would have been a different success rate at Manchester United. Boys, we're up against the clock here. As always, a wonderful conversation. It was a lot of good input. Thank you all so much for watching, throwing in your questions. And we'll see what happens. Porto taking on Famalicão today. Will Porto drop points, or will they be 6 points up going into the next round in Liga de Portugal? We will have much more to talk about this in our next podcast. Christian, Mitch, I'm Kevin. Thanks for tuning in to the Tuga, the Everything Portuguese Soccer podcast by the fans, for the fans. Thanks as always for tuning in.